Is this the end of the Palestinian regime in the Gaza Strip? In an almost surreal turn of events, President Donald Trump has proposed a plan to permanently reallocate all Palestinians from the Gaza Strip, all 1.7 million of them, and putting them somewhere else where they can live peacefully. He wants to put an end to the feud between the two peoples, Israel and Palestine, that has gone on endlessly for decades, and instead put the U.S. perhaps in control over the territory, to level the whole area, the whole region, and rebuild it into a world destination for all countries to take part in. Naturally, the rest of the world is freaking the hell out.
I also strongly believe that the Gaza Strip, which has been a symbol of death and destruction for so many decades and so bad for the people anywhere near it, and especially those who live there, and frankly, who's been really very unlucky. It's been very unlucky. It's been an unlucky place for a long time. Being in its presence just has not been good, and it should not go through a process of rebuilding and occupation by the same people that have really stood there and fought for it and lived there and died there and lived a miserable existence there.
In other words, why repeat the process over and over again?
Of interest with humanitarian hearts, and there are many of them that want to do this and build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza, ending the death and destruction and, frankly, bad luck. This can be paid for by neighboring countries of great wealth. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 12. It could be numerous sites, or it could be one large site. But the people will be able to live in comfort and peace, and we'll get...
Wouldn't that be amazing?
We'll make sure something really spectacular is done. They're going to have peace. They're not going to be shot at and killed and destroyed like this civilization of wonderful people has had to endure. The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious. They instead can occupy all of a beautiful area with homes and safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
So essentially, the key components of this proposal is this. Trump is envisioning the U.S. would seize control of Gaza to clear unexploded ordnance, demolish damaged infrastructure, and essentially redevelop the area into a luxury destination that he has dubbed the Riviera of the Middle East. Trump is arguing that the 1.8 to 2 million Gaza residents should be resettled in neighboring countries like Egypt or Jordan, claiming that they have no alternative due to the enclave's devastation. He dismissed the possibility of return, asking why would they want to go back? The place has been hell. And essentially without foreign aid, without U.S. aid, the region is never going to be rebuilt. So Trump's plan is essentially to transform Gaza into a hub for tourism and jobs funded by wealthy countries with humanitarian hearts. He is likening the project to a real estate venture, promising unlimited jobs and housing. Now, the left-wing rag Axios discussed this very situation here. This was posted just a few hours ago last night. They title it, Trump claims U.S. will take over Gaza and turn it into new Riviera. They write, President Trump declared during a press conference alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday that the U.S. would take over the Gaza Strip and own it. Why this matters, Axios writes. 2 million Palestinians live in Gaza, which was largely destroyed by Israel in its war with Hamas militants. Terrorists, Axios. Terrorists. Let's get it right. Trump has contended those Palestinians should be moved out and the U.S. should take control in order to rebuild A startling proposal with no legal backing, but which Trump presented as a done deal. Shocking that Trump would do something like just assuming that it's going to get done. Asked if he was planning a, quote, permanent occupation of Gaza, Trump said, "I do see a long-term ownership position," which he claimed would bring great stability to the region. Now, the idea, Axios writes, is likely to face fierce opposition from Palestinians and from leaders across the region. Trump did not rule out sending in U.S. troops. Oh no. He has frequently remarked on what valuable real estate Gaza could be, and suggested at the press conference that it could be one day the Riviera of the Middle East, as we just saw. Now, Axios suggests that Netanyahu looked surprised by Trump's comments, but didn't outright endorse the proposal, but said it is a different idea that Israel and U.S. are discussing. He said, "I think it could change history, and it is worthwhile pursuing." You say things others refuse to say, and after the jaws drop, people say, maybe he is right, the Israeli prime minister added. Now, of course, there was the obligatory condemnations and the "how dare you, how could you," and of course, the quite often overused, even downright boring claims of ethnic cleansing, etc., etc., etc. And there was also the regional obligatory opposition. You had Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the Arab League who outright rejected the proposal, calling it a form of, once again, ethnic cleansing. And Hamas even joined in on the condemnation. They called it a recipe for regional chaos, which of course is ridiculous and stupid coming from a terrorist organization whose only reason to exist is to cause regional chaos, to kill Jews. So that was rather amusing to come from them. And then, of course, the Palestinian leaders who once again tried to reemphasize Gaza's role as a part of a future state. And then, of course, there was backlash here in the U.S. Lawmakers labeled the plan deranged and problematic, because of course they did. For example, Senator Chris Coons, a hack for his party, called it outrageous, noting Gaza's hostility towards the U.S. troops. But while the majority of reactions to President Trump's Gaza proposal have been critical, there were those who saw a positive note here worth supporting. First, there was from Israel, who had some of the ministers from the right-wing party. They expressed strong support for Trump's plan. Ben Gvir, or Giver, whatever, praised the initiative, stating, "I applaud President Trump for his initiative to relocate Gaza's population to Jordan and Egypt." And Smotrich called it a great idea to help Gaza residents find other places to start new lives. And then, of course, there was the overwhelming enthusiasm from Trump supporters on social media. For example, one such supporter quipped that Gaza would be renamed the Gaza Strip, and another wrote simply, "I love it." And others, like Mouse 2024, a random person on the internet, said, "Might as well, we've been paying their bills for decades." But it wasn't just the internet supporting this. There were also House Republicans, specifically from the Israeli caucus. They also backed Trump's statements. You had Representative Nancy Mace from South Carolina, who supported the proposal, and Representative Richard Hudson from North Carolina, who tweeted, "President Trump will relentlessly strive for historic and enduring peace." Now, as the left-wing rag Axios noted, Benjamin Netanyahu didn't fully endorse the plan, but described it as a potential historical transformation and a valuable idea worth considering. But for all the condemnations of Donald Trump's plan, the reality is this: we have been trying the same old, tired, boring way for decades. All my life, we have placated the terrorist organizations within Palestine. All my life, we have tolerated the endless cycle of violence perpetuated on the Israeli people, who in turn fire and strike back at their neighbors, which then leads to the tired, recycled global outrage machine for "how dare Israel fight back," blaming them for the violence, which in turn would then lead to Israel doing a ceasefire, leading to a temporary pause in violence until, once again, terrorists from Palestine repeated the cycle. Over and over again. My entire life, I have been watching this happen. It is tired. It is boring. And it's frankly retarded that we would keep repeating the same thing. Now, I'm not saying that Donald Trump's idea is the one to go with, but why not try something new and different here? Why do we have to settle for the fact that 1.8 to 2 million people living in the Gaza Strip will have to live miserable, horrible lives? So why not try something new and different? Now, maybe Donald Trump's plan won't work here. Who knows? But at the very least, this conversation that he has begun will force the nation states in the area to start thinking outside of the box themselves. The world has seen that Donald Trump is on a mission this time around. He has been indefatigable since returning to office. I mean, the left here in the US are struggling to just even keep up with half of his agenda. It's all they can do to even stay remotely relevant in public discourse. Every time they come out there and have a big press conference, there's a new story already happening, and they are then steamrolled and lost in translation. And the neighboring states around the US here in South America and America's hat, Canada, they've tried to stop his deportation plans and controlling the border. You've had Colombia, you've had Mexico, you've had Canada and Panama. They have all bent the knee. They have all acquiesced to Trump's demands in one form or another. And the rest of the world is seeing this. And if we're to be honest with ourselves, this shouldn't even really come as a surprise. In fact, for those of you who have watched this channel regularly, you'll know that about a little over a week ago, I covered this very topic. Donald Trump, on the 26th, was already floating this very idea. Donald Trump has suggested large numbers of Palestinians should leave Gaza to, quote, just clean out, end quote, the whole strip, after ordering the U.S. military to restart shipments of 2,000-pound bombs to Israel. The U.S. president said he wanted Gaza residents to move to neighboring nations and that they could be displaced temporarily or could be long-term, after a phone call with Jordan's King Abdullah on Saturday. Trump said, "I'd rather get involved with some of the Arab nations and build housing at a different location where they can maybe live in peace for a change. You're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out the whole thing." Gaza, you see, writes The Guardian, has 2.3 million residents. Trump said he asked King Abdullah if the country would take in more Palestinians. Jordan is already home to 2.4 million Palestinian refugees from families expelled back in 1948 after the creation of Israel. Trump said, "I said to him, I'd love you to take on more because I'm looking at the whole Gaza Strip right now and it's a mess. It's a real mess. I'd like him to take people." He also suggested Egypt as a destination for Gaza residents and said he would raise the issue with their president. Since the start of the war in 2023, Egypt has warned repeatedly against forced displacement of Palestinians from Gaza and reinforced its border, which I believe the only reason for that was to keep them from fleeing the conflict, hoping for more casualties, but that's just the cynic in me. What do I really know? So again, I have to ask the question, why not? If the violence will never end until one side is either dead or removed from the area, why not use this opportunity to try and help the Palestinian people? Why not free them from being endless pawns of their Arabic neighbors? Why shouldn't we help them have an opportunity at living peaceful, happy lives? Why do we need to accept the endless violence is just the way that it has to be? Of course, there will always be the naysayers. There will be the people who would argue that this would violate international law. For example, forced population transfers are prohibited under the Geneva Convention. And experts and human rights groups are warning that the plan could constitute a war crime. But as we have seen with Donald Trump, just because leaders are currently stamping their feet and announcing how much they're going to reject this proposal, these plans, the only thing that's going to matter is the end of the negotiations. And history shows us that Donald Trump has a knack for getting his way. Trump's proposal represents one of the most radical U.S. foreign policy moves probably in my lifetime. He is prioritizing geopolitical realignment to save lives and to help people over the desire of so-called Palestinian self-determination. But again, we have seen him work his magic. Take the Abraham Accords, which ended Israel's isolation from their neighboring Arab states. So perhaps here too, we might see a miracle in the making. One where maybe, just maybe, we might actually see peace in the Middle East.